You had to come.
In 1886, the territorial legislature established the Dakota Reform School in Plankington, South Dakota. The cold stone of those early buildings was symbolic of the delinquent for which they were built. The physical structures themselves could in no way provide the personal contact needed to make human beings respond in a truly human way. They could legislate the buildings, 784 acres of land, but they could not legislate human values, emotion, caring, sharing, concern for others, values inherent in all of us, but not always shared, not always given.
I think what we're attempting to do now is to get into a positive treatment type program for our young people, see that we can actually do something about changing behavior while the young people are here, so that when they go out, they are much more successful in coping with the problems of society.
Sherman Arnold, Assistant Superintendent at Plankington Training School. Arnold and the other administrators at Plankington use the program called Positive Peer Group Culture. What is positive peer group culture?
Well, the program Positive Peer Culture, I think it has to include the total program that we have presently at the State Training School. This is, a process of trying to make these young people positive. And to do this, you have to build a culture, and this includes everything. This includes their living quarters, their work assignments, the school program, the recreation program, the whole bit. This is all part of the culture. And as you use this culture, you develop terms that you talk about, and the staff and the young people are communicating in a common language, and this is the culture that we attempt to build. We demand that these young people become positive. We demand that they care. We demand that they help one another. And to do this, you have to give them responsibility. And I think that it's the responsibility part of it that is very important. They have to make a few mistakes so that within this group part of the culture that they can see it and interpret and help the person then correct and be aware of their problems, so that, again, when they leave our institution, they're able to cope with the frustrations and the problems of the community.
Being able to cope with their own problems and the problems of their community is the aim of this new program called Positive Peer Group Culture. But that has not been easy. In years past, young people paroled from Plankington usually returned or graduated to the penitentiary.
I believe we were too comfortable here in the procedures we were using, and we didn't feel that we were really making significant changes in the children, which of course is our main purpose, is to change attitude and get these boys and girls prepared to return to society.
But I think as we watched our products go out, we weren't really satisfied with what was happening to them.
How do you control or contain the aggressive behavior of the delinquent without the use of punitive measures, which add to aggressiveness and the anger which underlie it? How do you lend dignity and a sense of importance to persons who tend to abuse privilege and to exploit others? Plankington's answer to these age-old questions was positive peer group culture.
I think as we examined it and felt that this is the thing that we could use here most effectively to bring about what we're looking for, and that is a change in the way the young person feels about himself. And if you change the way they feel about themselves, you change the way they behave.
Can you change a bad kid, really?
We haven't really been in this program, the total positive peer culture program, long enough to really be able to say, statistically we're, 100% better than we were a year ago. But I think we can say that we are turning out a kid who feels much better about himself, and we feel is more ready to cope with the outside world.
The student who comes to Plankington is a young adult
from 11 to 18 years of age. He may have stolen a car, burglarized a store, been arrested for shoplifting, or any number of offenses. Whatever the reason, all students share one thing in common. They are in trouble, and South Dakota's juvenile judges have sent them to Plankington as a last resort. Upon his arrival at Plankington, the juvenile finds himself in a totally different world. In the outside world, he was sometimes an outcast, and many times considered different. At Plankington, probably for the first time, he does not feel different. Everyone's in trouble, and he doesn't have to feel ashamed because he has a problem. When a student arrives at the school, he is immediately assigned to a group, ideally composed of 9 members and the group leader. From this day on, he will spend every waking moment with at least one member of his group. He will seldom be alone. It's the staff's job to use these groups and the total school program to develop an environment that will truly change the attitudes of the delinquent. The staff sets the basic course for schooling: working, counseling, and recreation. The activities of the group are controlled by the group leader, who is a member of the staff. The development of new attitudes toward society in the minds of the delinquents is guided by the group leader. But activities of day-to-day life are controlled by the group alone. There are no bars, no fences at Plankington.
You can, put up bars and all these things, but here again, the young person doesn't feel like he's learning to control it. It's set there for them, and there is no control. Because when he leaves, there are no bars and limits. He has to learn to cope with society as it is. And if he is constantly copping out by running away, he never will solve his problem. So we put it back on these young people, saying, look, you can't help this kid if you're playing the cops now.
The students dress as they choose. No one gets them up or puts them to bed. They are treated as responsible young people. If they stay up late reading or helping a group member who has a problem, it's their responsibility to see that they are up for breakfast and at school on time. The students attend Lincoln High School, an accredited school staffed by certified teachers. The students are offered a well-balanced curriculum with emphasis on remedial work. The student is placed in school with 3 members of his group in each class whenever possible. These group members are encouraged to help each other with schoolwork as well as with behavioral problems. Any problem that develops in school is related to the group later in the day. Many times, a group member that is a better student will help a slower member with his schoolwork. All students must participate in a work detail. They may be asked to shovel snow, work in the cafeteria, or clean their living quarters. There are always at least 3 members of the same group on the same detail. And, whenever possible, the whole group will be assigned the same job. The work details are assigned by the staff, but it's the job of each student to see that the work gets done.
Well, I think that probably this is one of the biggest changes that we've had in our institution in designing this positive peer culture. Because I think that if we demand that young people be responsible, then we have to give them the responsibilities. I think that the things that they know that school starts at 8:45. They know that what time breakfast is. They know what time dinner is. They know what time the supper hour is. They know when these things are going on. And I think that what we've said to them is, okay, here's a clock. Set the alarm and get up and do the things that you have to do before you go to breakfast. Get your chores done, get your work done, so forth. But we pretty much leave them alone. Now, if they don't follow through with their responsibilities, then staff steps in and says, now look, we've given you the responsibility and you're not handling it. Now we'll have to take over for a while until you can be the young adults that we want you to be. You can be responsible. So, yeah, you'll see kids walking around the campus by themselves without staff following them. You'll see kids working in an area with staff around, but not telling them exactly how to do it. We want them to find out. If you've got to clean a building, then you don't tell every, you do this, you do this, you do this. We let them work it out. They get in arguments once in a while. But I think it's important for us then to see how they react to each other. And it is a much more free campus than it used to be. but it's a much more controlled campus. They are controlling their own behavior, and if a kid shows a problem, then we demand that they step in and help right now. That's their responsibility, to be constantly helping somebody when they need help. And you never know when this is going to happen. It might happen while they're eating dinner, it might happen over in the school building, it might happen when they're in recreation playing a basketball game, but you give them a chance to help each other when the problem comes up. So we do give them as much responsibility in how they handle themselves during the day. Like if you want to sit up at night and read, fine. But you know what time breakfast is, and you know what time school is, and you have to be there.
Before entering Plankton, the juvenile has lived in a world where he is not trusted. He has lived in a world of rules, and time and again he has chosen to break them, and later been punished. He has been sent to Plankington to develop a new attitude toward those rules. But here at the school, things are different. The student encounters something unusual. He lives by a set of rules. But no policeman or judge holds the threat of punishment over him. If he breaks the rules, he does not face a judge or jury. Instead, he faces the painful disappointment of the 8 other members of his group who share the responsibilities for his action. Plankington is a paradox. Responsibility and freedom are given to emotionally troubled young adults who have abused privilege when given to them. It is not easy to accept this responsibility, not when a student is wrapped up in the memories of a broken home or a shattered faith in his fellow human beings. Plankington is not a model culture, of course. The student body is made up of young people who parents, teachers, and society have given up on. Most of the young people have very deep and very serious emotional problems. These problems have been ignored in the past or have been magnified by constant rejection and misunderstanding. The key to the success of the new group culture at Plankington is the chance for these problems to surface, find a listening ear, and advice from someone who has already been through it, already felt the pain and started to make it all make sense.
I think this whole package of being responsible. If the kid is talking about running away, the group maybe have to babysit with him for all night, perhaps. I mean, somebody sitting in front of the door saying, no, we care enough about you that we're not going to let you run away because you're going to hurt yourself. And it's beautiful to see the care and concern that these kids will pick up and show when a problem comes up. So you don't say to the kids, well, you can't handle this, so we'll have to put this boy in an isolation room and lock the door because he's talking about running away. You put it right back on them and say, look, this boy is in your group, you care enough about him, you're going to make sure that he doesn't run away. That's your responsibility.
Because any student at Plankington is never without at least one member of his group, that listening ear is never far away. And if a student blows up during some daily activity, it will be observed by one of his group members. Each student is constantly watched by his fellow group members. His problems are no longer his own private secret. They are openly discussed. It doesn't take long for a juvenile to react to this total group culture. He is cared about, listened to, but most important, understood. His group becomes effective when his barriers are shattered and his problems are shared. There are no more secrets, and hang-ups begin to dissolve. The real discussion of problems takes place every night, 5 nights a week, when each group meets to discuss daily problems. The arrangement of the group is simple. The 9 group members are seated in a circle, with the group leader behind a desk in front of them. What happens in the group?
And this is the coming together of all the things that are going on within the institution. And the groups meet 5 nights a week for an hour and a half. This is the time when the young people get together and talk about how they got in trouble with each other and what has been going on. When the young people come in and sit down, the first thing that we want them to start doing is to go over the problems that they've shown during the day and how they are really problems. And sometimes there's some interpretation by different group members that wasn't a problem or it was a problem or this is very important in the fact that from these problems and the young people within the group ask for the meeting to get help.
Advice from the group is not always wanted. Some problems are very deep and very painful. If a student cannot face them and refuses to let the group inside him, the group will often take it upon themselves to throw these problems out in the open. The only way a student can be paroled from Plankington is to first be recommended for that parole by his group. The staff members and group leaders will discuss that recommendation and have a final decision. But there's no way out of Plankington without the recommendation of the group first.
So, even though she's afraid that you're going to hurt her by saying something back to her, she still shouldn't be afraid to check you because she should be concerned enough to help you.
Yeah. Another thing we found out, she doesn't like us to go deep into her problems and find out.
How are we going to change these things? How are we going to make her feel better about herself? Because this is two-thirds of it. You can see it right now. She feels very poorly about herself. She did on the outs and she does in here.
Yeah.
So what can you do about this to help her now?
Well, we have to make us face up to it.
Okay, you don't just give up by saying, oh, all right, Debbie, you don't have it. No, you keep at it and you make her see that she does have it.
Some of the people are concerned about, well, how realistic is this? You know, when the kid has to go out, he doesn't have the group, he doesn't have this thing anymore. And I think that it's up to us then to keep this group process where each individual within the group is gaining his own strength. Sure, there's group strength, just like there's family strength, but in a successful family, you're building strength and character in each one of the young people in the family as they interact. And I think that this is what we're attempting to do here. So that when they do get out, that they are more verbal, more able to understand their own problems and other people's problems. They're more tolerant. They're able to cope.
Problems are not always easily uncovered. Chances are higher, armed with self-understanding and a feeling of self-worth, that the positive peer group culture program has given him. He has learned to curb his hostilities, and perhaps we have saved him from society's last resort, the South Dakota Penitentiary. These brutally frank discussions of human problems are the basis of the theory called positive peer group culture. South Dakota has been a leader in implementing this innovative program. Thus far, the reaction has been good.
I think the most significant impression has been from people that are really interested in children, and I'm speaking now of welfare people, school administrators, people that are really dealing with kids. They're, I think, had their eyes open since they've been able to see our program. They can see that we're really, really reaching these boys and girls. If we can prevent a child from ending up in the penitentiary, why, we've saved the taxpayers hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
We have saved more than dollars. We are saving human beings, giving another chance to a child, a life just begun that started all wrong. Plankington is a school teaching a lesson we could all learn. What if each of us were this honest with ourselves and our peers? In 1886, they legislated the building, 184 acres of land, but they could not legislate human values, emotion, caring, sharing, concern for others. Values inherent in all of us, but not always shared, not always given. Can you change a bad kid? Really? At Plankington, we believe we can.